Well, thank you for having me on your show. I'm always honored when I have an opportunity to chat with you because you produce amazing content, and I'm just honored to be a part of that. My name is Arthur Jones. I'm the founder of a business practice that I call the Art of Standing Out. And I believe that story and standing up for what we believe and using storytelling to spread the word about our beliefs, how we believe that we can serve people to help them accomplish more, is another line of work that I do. And it's done in the Story Lab, where I think there's storytelling, but there's also story listening, building, and doing. And we'll talk more about that as you learn more about me. I come to storytelling and the current business, the art of standing out, from a long career in the Fortune 100 company selling technology to other Fortune 100 companies. And I must admit that I learned so much from talking to executives in boardrooms about what their challenges were. And I learned that listening was more important than telling. But listening enabled me, when it was my turn to tell the story of the product or service that I sold, I knew exactly how to insert the story of my product into the narrative of the person that I had been listening to for so long. And I think that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. How to understand your customer's narrative, seeking first to understand them. So when you tell the story of your product, service, or offering, you know how to insert your value into their narrative, and it lands with them like music to their ears. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's why I do what I do.
That's so beautiful. You said seek to listen first.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. That is nothing to underrate for any reason at all. I really appreciate that. That is a lot that is packed into that. Seek to listen first, not speak first, but listen first. All right, I'm coming to that later. So Adam, tell me a bit about yourself. So where did you grow up? Tell me a bit about your infancy growing up.
Oh, okay. I was born in a city called Madison in New Jersey. New Jersey is in the northeastern region of the United States. Um, I grew up with a loving family, mother, father. I have an older sister, just one sibling, but a family of aunts and uncles and cousins that was truly amazing, and loving and nurturing. One of the people that when I look back on my youth, I didn't know it when it was happening, but I recognize it now, that my grandmother, Isabella, really was, I guess, instrumental in giving me certain values, that I got them kind of auto-magically just by observing her. But now as an adult, when I look back to explore where my values come from, I realize that many of the ones that I cherish the most came from her. And so that's how New Jersey and my family shaped me. I went to university in New Jersey at Rutgers University. After living in New Jersey, going to university in New Jersey, and getting all that New Jersey and the tri-state area, that's Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey, are very closely coupled in that way because they're so close to one another. I moved to California on the opposite coast of the United States and spent many years there, raised my family there, worked for corporate America there, learned so much from the boardrooms that I could walk into and learn from the executives that were trying to solve problems there. So I've enjoyed my youth, growing up in America, but I must admit, it wasn't until in my 20s that I traveled to Europe and North Africa that I realized that I was a citizen of the world, and I became more. I appreciated diversity in a much more important and compelling way. That's kind of a summary of where I come from, some of the places that I've traveled that have shaped me. And I honor all those places because in many ways they make me who I am today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those are what you have encountered in your journey, and they are part of your story. They are part of what make you who you are. Briefly, would you like to tell me how you got into business? I mean, what was the journey for you getting into the business world?
That's really an interesting one. I think it really begins with my childhood friend, Oliver, who I was in university, he was in university. I had gone on to work at Blue Cross and Blue Shield, a healthcare organization. He had gone on to get a master's at the University of Michigan in hospital administration. Being my childhood friend, we talked about healthcare and caring for people and the business of healthcare an awful lot. And I had an opportunity with this passion I had for healthcare to join a healthcare organization in San Francisco, California. So the kid from New Jersey that had a graduate from university, had been immersed in healthcare, had a chance to move all the way across the country to another small emerging healthcare company, and I did. And coming to San Francisco, another force in the world, that a beautiful city with a lot of exciting, amazing things happening just up the road a bit from Silicon Valley. Healthcare was a fascinating space to work in, but San Francisco was an energetic and amazing place to have a life. And from healthcare, I segued from being involved in healthcare to getting an offer to go work for Xerox Corporation. And in the late 1980s, which is when I really began working at Xerox, Xerox was, I guess, kind of like the one of the, it was a Fortune 100 company, I'll say it that way. And it was a big company. It's kind of today a shadow of what it was then. But I had the pleasure of working at Xerox and working, not selling copiers, which is what most people know Xerox for, but working with technology. And the technology that we use today was all invented at the Palo Alto Research Center in Palo Alto, California. The mouse, the icons on the screen, the artificial intelligence that we're also enamored with today was also developed with Xerox. And the Department of Defense invested heavily in many of the technologies that we know and love today. And I had the pleasure and the honor to be part of the teams that we called ourselves Tiger Teams at the day, because we were a small band of men and women that had the honor of selling these amazing technologies that none of us really understood because they were so amazing and so new. But we learned, and again, it was learning from our customers, because we had these things and we would show up with a book that contained inside all of the amazing things that these tools could do. And we would present them and draw on whiteboards, and we would talk about them, and people would say, that's amazing. We could, what if we, so it was an era where all the possibilities were before us. And I think, well, I know those moments were shaping me because I had the magic in my hand. I was the representative that was bringing this amazing technology to the world. The people in the boardroom said, what if, oh, wow, we could, how about, and it was me listening to their imagination of what they could do with this thing that seemed to be this enchanted tool. You use a mouse, you point at icons, you do this, you can do that, and you can communicate with somebody halfway around the world. Wow, that's amazing. It was the listening that I did in those moments that makes me think of story listening as a superpower today. Because I learned from them what they needed from me. It wasn't me, the salesperson, telling them what I had and how it would help them. I first needed to seek to understand. And we can only accomplish that by listening well. And that's my journey from New Jersey to California to Silicon Valley, working with some of the amazing technologies of the day that inform how I see technology today, because I've been seeing it for several decades now. But the one thing that's been constant is that I spend more time listening, in spite of my ability to just talk a mile a minute. I know that listening is my superpower. And let me say it differently. Curiosity and my interest in understanding what other people think and feel and believe is my superpower. And listening to them is how I gain the knowledge about them so I can serve them better.
Well, right. Thank you so much for that. That is really very incredibly powerful. That is the essence of the entire process, which is the story. Now today, of course, we are talking about the 4-part to your storytelling, which I'm really looking up to understand even better. Now, can you list them out for me? Just list them out for me.
Okay.
A kind of a small summary of each. Then we're going to go into each of them one after the other. Please go ahead.
Okay. There are 4 parts. I think of story as like a multifaceted diamond, but the largest facets of the diamond that shine the brightest are story listening, which is me seeking to understand. Story building is the interesting part, because story building means that I'm not the storyteller necessarily. I'm not the storyteller, I'm the story builder. But I don't build stories alone. I build stories working with the people I want to tell stories to. If I have 1,000 ideal customers, prospects, and I define them well, then I identify 4 or 5 or 6 of them that I can say, I've got a product and I want to tell you the story. And I tell them the story. And I say, what do you think? And they say, well, that's a great story, but I would tell it this way. Now I'm collaborating with my ideal client avatar to tell the story of my product that I'm going to ultimately tell to other people just like them. Story listening is what I do to understand. Story building is what I do to collaborate and co-create stories. Storytelling, for me, is the easy part, because if I collaborated well with the ideal client avatar that I want to reach, then telling is just what channels my ideal client avatar is listening on. Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? Are they on? And you just understand your client to know where they're looking for the answers that they seek. And then after listening and building, you go there and you promote your stories there. And that for me is the telling part. And then the most important and perhaps the hardest part is story doing. After I listen and I build and I tell, I have to live the story that I've told. And if I've told a story about my amazing business and the values that we have of always over-delivering and treating our customers well, the first time that I don't do that, bad news travels a heck of a lot faster than good news. And people say, he tells a great story, but in real life, doesn't behave that way at all. He doesn't do the stories that he tells. So story doing is where corporate culture comes from. Story doing is where your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. All right. So story doing makes sure that the brand that you're building has all the honor and garners all the respect that you seek by doing the stories you tell well.
And that is really incredible. That is really incredible, the way you break it down. Now, I am imagining that the person that is listening to us is a business person who want to understand how to really explore this four facet of story in their business. But before we go into the detail of each of them, would you like to explain to me how you came up with this idea? Why was it important for you to break it down the way you did?
I'd like to say that I am amazing, the most brilliant person on the planet, right? But I know that there's no new ideas out there. There's no new ideas out there. The great American author, James Baldwin, the great Nigerian author, Chinua Achebe. I've learned so much from those authors about life and meaning. And I think the same thing is true when it comes to story. Here in the United States, Native Americans say, those who tell the stories rule society. Like, well, if they said that hundreds of years ago, I can say it today, but I just say it using my words. So I think there's really no new ideas in this notion of listening. Diogenes is the crazy Greek Stoic who lived in a barrel for a while, but we have his writings. And I mean, lived in a barrel, and he had a lantern that he would, when he was not living in the barrel, he took a lantern and moved to the cities in Greece, and he said, is there an honest man anywhere? He was a little crazy, but he also is well documented that he had some wise words. One of the wise things that he said is that we have 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should use them accordingly. In other words, see and hear and speak less. So if you take all of the things that we learn about the lessons that have been shared with us by the thinkers and thought leaders and influences throughout history, and we aggregate them, that's all I've done. It's me pulling together the things that work for me, the things that I believe are the way I'd like to solve problems for people. And thinking of myself as a deep thinker, I like working with people that are not looking for the silver bullet. Silver bullet being, let me say it differently. I acknowledge we all have a 9-second attention span. Right now, I've got 3 screens in front of me. Come on, really? Do I need that much information? Well, but I have them here because that's the way we operate. We move from thing to thing to thing very quickly. But I acknowledge that my ideal client is someone that wants to really deeply understand why things work. And as such, because I'm wired that way, I want to understand the meaning of things. And my ideal client wants to understand the meaning of things and not looking for the 9-second answer. They don't want quick, they want value. And it's like buying a pair of shoes is probably the best analogy. I can buy a pair of shoes at that store for $10 and they'll last me for 10 months. I can buy a pair of shoes at this artisan shoemaker for $100 and they'll last me for 10 years. I am the artisan shoemaker that makes shoes that last a long time because they are built of value. And I think there's value in knowledge, and I gather knowledge and I put the knowledge that I've gathered around storytelling together in this listen, build, tell, and do thesis as a vehicle to help people lean into just being human in a world we're surrounded with artificial intelligence and all the technology we have. Because story, for me, being a technologist, as I think of myself as a technologist, and I've got a tech stack of tools that I use. I know Obi has a tech stack that's deeper than mine, of all the things that we have the capacity to use to help us accomplish more in the daily work that we do to grow our businesses. When I added storytelling to my tech stack, I did it because I realized that story is the oldest tool that we have at our disposal. It's old as dirt. Before we could speak, we were drawing on with charcoal on cave walls the story of what a day in the life was 100,000 years ago. There's no technology on my desk in front of me that's as old as story. So I've taken all those lessons that I've learned from all those people that shared them, and I've put them together. All the facets of story, really to help people realize that it's not the new technology that we should be all excited about. It's that humans are wired for story, and it's the oldest tool that we have at our disposal. That's a long answer, but
No, that is a deep answer. That is, we really need to avoid the temptation of just be on the surface. And of course, as storyteller, you understand how much we love depth of going deep, because life is deep. Life is not just on the surface. So sometimes we do need the long answer. I do hear people complain often that we don't have time to listen, but I don't think it's right. We have time. Only that just sometimes we do waste our time a lot, just jumping from one task to the next, tasks that might not necessarily be adding value to our life. Because anything of substance is deep. Anything that is really worthy of it is deep. It's deep. It needs deep attention to be able to create it, and it needs deep attention to be able to consume it. You just cannot jump in and jump out and you say you have gotten it. No, you need time, you need dedication. You need to repeat it a number of times. There are some episodes on YouTube that I listen to. This episode, sometimes it's up to 3 hours, but I've listened to it a number of times. Of course, there are some episodes that are there also on YouTube, maybe like 3 minutes, that I can't even finish. It depends on what we are looking for. If I get the right information, then I can really stay there and really stay hooked on the screen. So thank you for that share. It is good to be deep.
I think before we went on air, I was honoring Obi with being amazing, because I think he is. And if I could bring how I think of that, because it builds on what he just said, and it's the idea that once we commit to something and we commit to doing it well, we have to do the work. And often doing the work, we have to learn things, and you have to be patient with learning. But once we master and gain mastery of a thing, we can put it to work for us. And that requires, in order to gain mastery of story, in order to gain mastery of brand development, in order to gain mastery of building a community, a thriving community of raving fans for your offer, it takes commitment. And there's a guy from the 1400s, lived in Germany. And if you bear with me for a second, I'm just going to read a little bit of his quote.
Please go ahead. We have the time.
It's from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, and the poem is called Commitment. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas in splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. And in the 1400s, he said providence. Today, we might say the universe or something. Providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamt would have come his or her way. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Because boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. That's commitment. And my commitment to story is learning all I could about story and thus coming up with this 4-part harmony of story: listen, build, tell, and do. Obi has done this amazing the African storytelling for the African diaspora. I'm just enchanted with it because it is such a important effort. It's aggregating the stories of the African diaspora in one place. At some point in the future, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of episodes that other people can learn from the stories that are being archived, these artifacts of brilliance and brilliant people from the African diaspora. That's commitment. It takes commitment to do amazing. And each of us has the same opportunity, because when we take the opportunity, then the universe moves to help us, and all manner of unforeseen events happen for us. And the beautiful part of that poem is that boldness: be bold, think big, reach beyond where you think you can grab, and then hire a coach. You can hire me, you hire Obi. We'll help you. We've done it. But have that coach to hold you accountable. We're recording, right, Obi? So I'm going to stop. This is my wife calling.
It's okay. No problem. No problem. No problem. Yeah, go. Yeah.
Hello. Emma. It's
okay, fine.
That's one of those moments where I have a choice. Answer the wife's call, or who knows what price I'd have to pay later. How come you didn't answer the phone?
I understand. It's normal. It's normal.
Yeah,
All right. So thank you so much for that response. That is really highly valuable. All right. That moved me to the first question I would like to ask you about the 4 facets of storytelling. And of course, we're going to start with the first one, which is the listening. Now, I want to ask this question because I believe that there are some businesses out there who are trying to say, but what about me? How can I do this? So for you, where do you think businesses should start from in learning about using the art of story listening? Because that is how you put it, story listening. How would they be able to start from if they want to leverage that in their business?
I'm smiling because I'm thinking of your thesis on passion to story. I think that's how you refer to it. And I think of it the same way. I think story listening is, I think of the listening portion of my process as a systems thinking exercise. The big word, big idea, systems thinking. What is that? System thinking is, it acknowledges that there are forces in the world at work shaping us. I mentioned my grandmother, Isabella, earlier. She, in many ways, is a force that shaped me in my youth. I'm from New Jersey in the United States, where it snows in the winter, and it's 20 minutes from New York City's Manhattan. I can see the Statue of Liberty That's New Jersey. It shaped my sense of the world. Story listening, when I say it's a systems thinking part of the process, I simply want the people that I serve to acknowledge the forces in the world that shape them first. Seeking to understand themselves is key, because if you don't understand yourself, you can't understand other people. If we don't understand ourselves, we cannot understand other people. If we're in service to other people, if that's my ideal customer over there, and I want to know their narrative almost as well as they do, so I can serve them, I can tell stories that reach and engage them, I've got to know them. Well, if I don't know myself, how am I going to know someone else? The systems thinking part of story listening acknowledges one of the forces is VUCA. Military term, kind of comes from the era of 9/11, when the World Trade Center came down. And the military forces in the US said, oh my gosh, we didn't see that coming. VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, chaos or complexity is the C, and ambiguity. Volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity. That's VUCA. War in Ukraine, VUCA. War in Gaza, VUCA. Interest rates around the world, high. That's uncertainty, right? Election year in the US coming up, complexity, uncertainty. All of those things are shaping each of us, depending on where we are. There are different things shaping all of us. And I believe that the systems thinking part of listening to ourselves first before we decide to listen, seek first to understand ourselves before we seek to understand our audience that we serve. Understand how VUCA affects them, so we build products that help them in a VUCA world. And if we build products that are the antidote to VUCA, and the antidote to VUCA is when there's volatility, you have vision. When there's uncertainty, you have understanding. When there's chaos, you have clarity. And when there's ambiguity, you're agile. VUCA versus VUCA prime, let's call it. And the prime is the antidote. And we have prime baked into the products that we've built because we know what they need, because we know ourselves. And we know how confident we are, but we know the effort we had to put into knowing ourselves, knowing our values, our principles, our beliefs, our biases, being completely self-aware and self-regulated. Hard work to get there. It's being emotionally intelligent is what we call it today. 1,000 years ago, we didn't call it anything. We just did the work. When we do the work and know how complex we are, then we can do the work to know how complex the people that we serve are. And when we do that work, then we can serve them better. That's the listening part. That's the systems thinking of the systems that work on ourselves, that shaped us and continue to shape us. And the systems, same kinds of systems that shape our customer. And when we understand that, we're really putting the ground floor or the pillars, the foundation of our business together. Because if you don't understand your customer, I don't know how well you'll do. I don't know how well you'll do as a business owner.
Thank you for that. And I can see now that when you were talking of VUCA, it made me actually remember the book The Art of War by Sun Tzu, no?
Yeah.
That you're going to have to know yourself. Because know yourself actually, it is something that I think it's ancient in us. Because from ancient writing, we could see it reflected a number of times. Man, know thyself. These are not new at all, but it have a way of coming back again and again, because this is the human story. The value, those things that we hold dear, they are powerful. And they have a way of coming back again and again. That is why I tell people that storytelling is one of the most important, I don't want to know whether it's even an invention, but it's one of the most powerful force we have as human beings. Now, imagine how we build the image of an enemy. Imagine how we reinforce the land. Okay, now listen, you were talking about Germany before. Now let's take a moment to reflect on the situation in Germany before the Second World War. Let's talk about maybe in the year 1930, 1925, a couple of years before that. When you close your eyes, what do you see? Like literally close your eyes. What do you see in the street of Berlin? Now, I tell you what I see. What I see are people that are just living normal life like every other person. The idea that you were a Jew, you were a Christian, you were the Gentile, were not really the biggest issue in Berlin at the time. But do you know that it would take one man, and of course, with his cohort, with the people that are working with him, to frame a different kind of reality, to tell a different kind of story? And we all know what happened. That the same people who until yesterday were seeing their neighbors, were seeing their bank workers, were seeing their husbands and wives, of course, coming from different ethnic background in this case, no longer see them the way they used to see them anymore. They are now seen as enemy, because the Nazis have told a different kind of story, and they have sold this story into the mind of the people. Therefore, it could be justified that these people can even be put on a gas chamber. Many of them will be killed, because when they are being killed, the people who are killing them do not, in their mind, think that they are doing what is wrong. Because the idea of what is wrong or what is right had now been reconditioned through another story. That these are your enemy. They are responsible for why you are suffering. Somebody have told this story. Do we need to remind also other people, particularly people of African descent, of how you got to the West? This was not on the basis of somebody liking you so much and say, hey, come and live with us in the United States, in Brazil. That was not the story. That was not how it happened. Do we want to take the time to reflect on the preparation leading to that? Because if we think back several hundreds of years before then, we could see that that story was different too. It wasn't like that. How did we manage to set the idea into ourselves that these people could actually pass through this torture? And of course, they don't call it torture because you are not, all right, what I'm trying to say in a very simple term, in a very simple way, is that storytelling is powerful. It's actually responsible for the metropolitan city that we have today. It's responsible for why we want to go to the moon, that one day we can colonize Mars. That is our story. And I believe that we need to learn the power of this magical instrument called storytelling. By the way, now this is what I want to do, Athon, because I want to still remain within this 4 facets of storytelling that you do for businesses. And I'm interested in number 2, which is building story or story building. How do you approach that? Help me to understand that. How do you approach that so that maybe other businesses that are listening to you, the individuals that are listening to you, looking for a way to explore the potential of storytelling in their business and how to better connect to their audience, they can leverage this. Please share with us.
Absolutely. And, remember, the client that I serve is already predisposed to want to do the work because they know that anything worth having requires work to do it, to gain it. And so system thinking is the listening part, the forces at work. Building is a human-centered, which is really my mission, to make people appreciate the human in other humans. Human-centered design thinking, right? A big word, but it just means that let's collaborate with the people that we serve so they can help us serve them better. What that means is when I design something, a cup, I want to design the perfect cup for drinking coffee. It's got to be the right weight. It's got to be the right color. And I could say, with my team, I sit in the conference room and say, what color do you guys like? Well, we like orange. We like purple. Well, what does purple and orange make when you put it together? It makes this color. Okay, let's make our cup this color. We like it. The world's going to like it. And then you make a bunch of 10 million of those cups and you put them on the shelf and nobody buys them. Why? Because you and your team loved it, but your ideal customer didn't love it because you didn't ask them. Human-centered design says you're building cups for coffee drinkers. You define the type of coffee drinker. Is it a pour over coffee? Is it a instant coffee? Is it a capsule coffee? Is it a coffee made in a copper skillet over an open fire? What kind of coffee drinker are you serving? And when you define that coffee drinker and know them well, and the definition is solid, then you go talk to them and say, look, I'm building cups for coffee drinkers like you. Here's our initial design. What do you think? And they take it and they hoist it up and they say, nice, kind of heavy, because if it's this heavy, transporting and doing this thing would be difficult. If it was lighter, it would be better. And we don't like orange and purple at all. We like black. Okay. That simple exercise of simply first defining your client well. And I don't mean it's not a definition that says I sell to men that are between the age of 25 and 37 and they make this income. That's great. That's demographics. But there's more that we can know about the people that we serve. What do they believe? What are their biases, their values? What keeps them awake at 2 a.m.? As a coffee drinker, what do they celebrate about the coffee that they drink? And what do they agonize and make that didn't taste good? I wonder why. Could it be the cup? When you understand their narrative that well and you allow them to share it with you, it's not you and your team drawing on the whiteboard alone with no customers in sight. Versus me, I'm sitting in a Starbucks talking to my customer. You're in your conference room drawing on the whiteboard about your customer. That moment, that illustration, alone drawing on your whiteboard, thinking about your customer, me in the Starbucks talking to my customer, the person drawing on the whiteboard saying, I know my customer, this is what they believe. That's implicit understanding, implied. It's implied that you know them. You think you do. Here's what I think I know. It's implied. I'm in the Starbucks, 3 feet away from my customer, and I'm having a conference with them and saying, look, you're a coffee drinker. We make cups for coffee drinkers. Here's what we're planning to do. Here's a story we plan on telling. What do you think? And they say, that's great, but, and I say, but what? And they say, well, but the cup could be this way and the story would resonate more with me if it was told that way. And I talk to more of my ideal clients in the same way, just 3 feet away, having conversations with them about how I want to serve them and the thing I'm building for them. And I want their opinion on what I'm doing. I'm gaining explicit understanding in real time. I'm not guessing. It's explicit from their lips to my ears. That's what the human part of building is all about. When you only have implicit understanding of your customer, good luck with that. You'll sell some stuff. When you have the human-centered connection with your customer, well-defined ideal client profile, and you understand there are forces at work on them the way they work on all of us. And when the forces work on them to change them, like an example, I woke up this morning and saw that in Iceland, they had a series of massive earthquakes. People were evacuated from a city. And Iceland's a volcanic island. If my clients are in Iceland and I don't ask them how the volcanoes and earthquakes are affecting them today and how I might change my product or my messaging or my service for them, I'm missing a huge opportunity. That's a radical example, but that's what's human-centered. I don't think I know. That's implied. I talk to them to know. That's explicit. And when I have those conversations with them, if I only talk to 6 of my ideal clients, and I've identified there's 1,500 in the marketplace that I want to sell to, when I work and build in the collaborative and co-creating way, the product and the stories about the product with them, when I tell them to the other 1,494, they receive it like music to their ears. They look up into the sky like the heavens have opened and say, oh my gosh, I've never heard anybody speak to me that way. They know me so well. Who's not going to buy a product that was built in collaboration with people just like them? That's what the building part is. Story building is collaboration and co-creation. It does require you to make the effort. It takes more time than just drawing on the whiteboard what you think about your prospect. It makes you engage with a small cohort of them. But when you do that, I think it changes your business because it changes your products and your messaging to the customers that you're in service to. And when we say we're in service to somebody, we're really helping. Our mission is to make their life better. And we know we can make their life better when we know their narrative almost as well as they do. We can't learn that without being explicitly engaged with them. And that changes the trajectory of your business.
That is great. That is so great. Thank you so much for that. How can you serve the people you don't know? That is so powerful. All right. Now, when you were explaining the 4-part facet of storytelling, you did make mention of something that the number 3, which is the storytelling, storytelling is the easier part for you. I don't know if you want to say something more about that. Why do you say that?
Well, I think I could say, let me tell you the story about that, right? Because, I mentioned earlier, I mean, in Chauvet, France, there are cave paintings that are 40,000 years old, right? There's stone carvings that there's artifacts that our forefathers have left, messages that they've left for us carved in the rock that are the stories of their life that we can see today, right? And we are wired for story. Our forefathers knew that by observation, just by looking and listening, saying, that guy, our shaman knows the stories. Our Giro knows the stories because he in the village is the one that holds the stories, our history, our family history, our tribal history, right? We've always done it. And understanding story, I'll tell you a story. I'll say it this way. I think we dream, and we problem solve using story. We think, we dream, we problem solve using story. That's just how we're wired. And if you don't believe that, here's a guy, an academic from University of Pennsylvania that moved to Claremont College in California. He was a neuroeconomist. If you had asked me what a neuroeconomist was 20 years ago, I kind of look at you with a side eye, like I know neuroscience. What's a neuroeconomist? I didn't even know that was a thing. There's the neuroscience of aesthetics. There's the neuroscience of economics. We have broken down what we know about the human brain and our cognitive abilities into all of its granularity. Our forefathers, 2,500 years ago, they didn't have the science that we had. They had just observation, and they could say, this one knows a lot. This one, not so much. Listen to this one, not that one. Now, we have MRI machines. This professor did a study. He invited students to a study, and he told them, look, I'm going to give you money in cash. I'm going to draw some blood from you before we begin. Then I'm going to tell you a story. Then I'm going to draw some blood. Is that okay? Said, how much money you're going to give me? Okay. You're going to give me $50 US. You can stick me with the needle twice. Okay, that's worth it. I'll do this. They draw blood, they put him in the room, and they tell the story about a father and a son. The son is the boy named Ben. And it's the story begins with the father is pushing Ben in a swing, and Ben is not quite 2 years old, and is in one of those swings that little children swing in. The father's pushing Ben, and Ben is laughing and having a joyful time. There's puffy white clouds in the sky. The sky is blue, and the father is pushing Ben, and it's a beautiful day. But the father knows something that Ben, the child, doesn't know. The father knows that Ben is dying and will only be with him for another 2 months. And that's what the doctors have said. The story goes on, and I won't tell you more of that story, but at that moment, when the story pivots from joy to the reality that the father knows something that Ben doesn't know, that child that's not quite 2, the flow of chemicals in our body changes. This is what the blood draw tells us after they draw the second sample. The second sample shows that during that story, when you find out that Ben is dying, you have a rush of cortisol, and that's the anxiety hormone. When you think about the father and the love for the son, oxytocin flows through your bloodstream. And that's the moral or the love molecule. That's the empathy molecule. And Paul Zak, who is the academic that did this study, he wrote a book about the study. He called it The Moral Molecule. It was all about the oxytocin that he witnessed. Blood draw before the story, blood draw after the story. The hormones he saw resident in the blood after, in the second blood draw, were different than before the story. His thesis was, and remember, the study is neuroeconomics. He was trying to figure out why people buy. And he was trying to determine if story was a real call to action. His thesis was that story changes the biology in humans. Let me say that again. It's weird to say it. When we hear a story, it can elicit different hormones to flow in our bloodstream. It can make us anxious, or it can make us feel love and empathy. We've always done it. The science is not new, but the science proves what we knew through observation thousands of years ago. Socrates said, those who tell the stories rule society. The Native Americans said the same thing. Every culture on the planet has said the same thing. Those who tell the stories, those who hold the stories, those who hold the stories of our tribe have the power because they know the knowledge that comes from the generations. Story is how we're wired. We're wired for story to affect our hormones and our biology in special ways. So if you don't acknowledge, one, that we're wired for story, that's just how we're made. Two, if once you acknowledge that, you should know that I'm just wired for it. So there's no barrier for me to be a good storyteller. I think, I dream, I problem solve in story already. You can hire a guide like me or Obi, but come to us with the knowledge that I've already got this. I need to tweak it here and there, right? I need to practice how to promote it on the channels. I need to master the channels more than I need to master the art of storytelling. Together, I can succeed as a business. That's this notion that story is something that's inherently human. We can teach it to you, but we're just unleashing what's already there. Because each of us has the same opportunity to change the biology and the people that we serve. And when we call them to action, know that you're wielding a tool that has power, and honor that tool, learn to use it well, so you do no harm with it. And when you learn to use it well, in the thesis is that you can encourage your business to grow because you encourage the people that you serve to gather around to hear more stories that you tell that resonate with them. It resonates with them because you know their narrative and you know what stories they need to hear. Yep.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I really do. You see, when you were talking about the story of the man that was swinging his son in the playground, of course, the story was very interesting for me as I was listening to it, every bit of it, because that is what we do as human beings. But you see, when you made mention of the fact that there was something the father know and the child doesn't know, and that the child was going to die after 3 months, something changed in me. You see, I didn't see the whole story, but that really changed the chemistry in me. And that is not because I am a storyteller. That has nothing to do with my qualification. It has nothing to do with where I'm coming from. All it just need to trigger those reactions in me is for me to understand what you are talking about. And I think that is somewhere said that the moment you hear something, you cannot hear it. There is nothing you can do about it to clean it away. You hear it, then you are going to respond to it. So those response, I think, they are just biology. They are natural.
It's biology. I think you're right. And I think the thing about that story is that it's relatable. We either have been a child and know what it feels like to be in that swing, or we have pushed a child, or we have a child. So it's relatable. And once it's relatable, it's memorable. When it's memorable, it's repeatable. Relatable, memorable, and repeatable is a superpower for business owners to have. Because I never know if the person I'm talking to is a prospect or someone that will be a raving fan that will relay my value to somebody that needs it. And if I tell them the story of what I do and how I serve, and it's relatable, memorable, and repeatable, a week later when they're having dinner with their brother, sister, college roommate, and the college roommate says, you know, I'm still struggling with that thing. I don't know what to do. And she says, well, you know, just a week ago, I met this guy who told me the story about his business. And it sounds like what he does is just what you need. Let me tell you the story. It's relatable, it's memorable, and repeatable. Being able to tell the story of the value that you offer and the people, and to define the people that you serve in that story. Because the reason that she tells that story to her college roommate is because in that story, she recognized her college roommate. When the college roommate said, you know, I've struggled with this problem. And of course, she knows her college roommate and she knows the problem. And those two things were identified in the story. Let me put you together with Arthur because he told me the story of his business and he serves people just like you in this way. He sounds like a really good guy. You should talk to him. We all have the same opportunity, but without knowing ourselves and knowing our customer, those are two parts of the equation you have to work on, be able to put that together.
Yeah, my mind is fly back again to the book, The Art of War. You must know yourself and you must know your, okay, in that case, the Art of War, as Shanzu was saying, you must know yourself and also know your enemy. This is very vital. But of course, in the business world now, you will say you must know yourself and you must know the people that you are serving, in this case, your client. But it is not even a coincidence that a lot of business executives are reading The Art of War, because that book is packed with strategy. And in business, we talk about strategy. So you are dealing with people, only that you are going to have to learn how to reframe and to re-elaborate the story. So that when Shanzu is saying, know yourself and know that enemy, you don't say know yourself and know that enemy in business. You know yourself and know thy client in this sense, because you are serving people, you are not killing people. But it's basically the same thing. The knowledge is about the same, no? Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate all you are sharing here. It's packed with value. But now, this is the fourth one, the story doing. Now, let's say you are advising businesses, and you want to use your experience of why you have framed it like this, of course. How would they leverage story doing in their businesses?
I think story doing is the one that rules the other three. And it's story doing is the one that I mentioned last, but story doing is the one that is perhaps the most powerful, because story doing is the action of being a founder, of being a solopreneur, being an employee in a corporation. What's your role? And doing it well. And story doing is, I'll give you a quote. I love quotes because quotes from people from thousands of years ago that say the thing that I'm trying to say. I'll quote them because they say it more simply and eloquently than I might stumble through it. And so Lao Tzu, a Chinese author, philosopher, author of the Taoism, which is a religious thesis. He wrote the book, the I Ching, which is the treatise of Taoist thought. He says, knowing others is intelligence, knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength, mastering yourself is true power. I'm going to read that again because I think it's, knowing others is intelligence, knowing yourself is true wisdom. That's the part that's where the magic is. So you can have intelligence knowing others. That's important. We've been talking about that. The wisdom is in knowing yourself. An American politician, author, inventor, Benjamin Franklin, most notable for flying a kite with a key on the string and lightning struck it. And that's a story that children in America learn about Benjamin Franklin, the American politician, author. Recently, as my investigation and my learning about the powers of story and joining the story fraternity, I discovered that Ben Franklin said something that was meaningful relative to story. my way of thinking about story, in particular story doing, because he said there's three things hard in life: steel, diamonds, and knowing yourself. Story doing is nothing other than knowing yourself. It's knowing your values, your beliefs, your principles, and biases, because those are the filters that we make our decisions through. And I mentioned my grandmother several times in the beginning of this chat. She is responsible for, when I was a child, she would have an amazing garden, and I would sit with her in the garden, and from the garden she would take food and prepare these amazing meals for the family and friends. I enjoyed hanging out with my grandmother because all of my other grandparents were older or deceased, so she was the one elder in my family, and I loved her, Isabella. And she made amazing food. I didn't know it then, but I know now when I look back, for the source of my sense of organic eating and sustainable living, it comes through her, and how she nurtured the things in the garden that she had, and how I felt in those moments when I was with her, and how I felt when I ate the food from the earth that she had nurtured into the pot and into my belly. Right. I honor her. And Isaac Newton, inventor, Britain, great theorist, scientist. Somebody said, "How'd you do it? How are you so great?" He said, I've only seen further because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. I've only feel the power of my organic living and my wellness regime and my sustainable commitment to sustainability because of my grandmother, Isabella. I know whose shoulders I stand on. Story doing is acknowledging the people who have helped shape us. That's what wisdom is. That's what Lao Tzu says. That's where wisdom comes from, knowing ourselves. And knowing ourselves is just not knowing me. I'm just not me. I am from a family of Hardy, Timmons, Banks, and Joneses, right? Those are the surnames. Isabella was a Timmons before she was a Banks. And those are two of the family names that come through her to me. When I honor that and what I get from that, the people that I serve, I like to use the metaphor of 3x5 cards. If I take all the people, places, experiences, and lessons learned in my life of X number of years, and I take each one of those moments, Isabella has a card, and I write Isabella Timmons Banks on one side, grandmother. On the other side of the card, I write wellness, organic living, sustainable commitment. There's other stuff that I could write down about Isabella as well that I learned from her, but that's another story. I would ultimately end up with 50 cards on my conference room table, each representing something that has informed who I am, whose shoulders I stand upon, lessons I've learned from people and places and things. That is knowing myself. That is the filter I use to do things in the world. It's the 57 cards are my North Star that guides me. They're on 3x5 cards, but when I take them together and hold them in my hand, I could put them here. And when I look at them, I say, yep, that's all my stuff. When I make decisions, they're all right there. That's the people. And I've got a new card. It's Mr. Owamfo, Brother Owamfo, because I now know him. And there are lessons that I've learned through him. And I know that there's a card that's waiting for me to complete that goes in my deck of lessons learned. we have to acknowledge the shoulders that we stand on. That's what story doing is, because when we have the deck, we know why we make the decisions we make, and when we need to add a card or when we need to edit a card, because the forces in the world change us. I need more decision-making power. It's tough out there. Where am I going to get the new lesson that I need to navigate the way forward? Where's it going to come from? Where am I going to find it? Story doing is, I say it's the hardest because it requires the most consistent commitment. But that's another episode in and of itself. But suffice it to say that knowing others is intelligence, knowing yourself is true wisdom. Get a deck of 3x5 cards and start trying to put the people that have gifted you your genius on those cards, name on the front, and what you learn from them on the back, and that's where your genius comes from. And then when you act in the world, you're honoring them with the genius that you got from them, and you'll keep on track because of that, and people will recognize you for that, and they'll say, when you're not in the room, you know, this is a good one, consistently, always shows up in an honorable way. I trust her. Takes practice.
Thank you so much for that. And the practice actually is what gets us to mastery. There is a story I often share here. It's about a man in my village where I grew up. I grew up in a village that is called Idumugulu, and Idumugulu is in another large community called Amedokiam. Now, in Amedokiam, there was a man, he's late now. He was a goldsmith, probably because he was having a leg problem, so he wasn't walking very fast. He wasn't able to walk, so he was always in the same place. But he was a goldsmith, the one that, if you needed to prepare your knife, he's the one that prepares it. If you needed to maybe repair your traps, you know, in the village now. So we set trap to be able to catch rodent and some other animals in the forest, squirrel, that we use in the family. Yeah, it's in the village. So we do all those things. And if you are the one that go for hunting, he can also prepare a gun for you. He know how to do this one, maybe something like double barrel gun and all that. Okay, sometimes the police visited here a number of times for this. But what I really want to point out there is that because this man was always refining his tool, always doing this, he was literally the best that everybody know of. So that anytime you want to do anything related to goldsmith, people will tell you, go to the store of Ojogun. Isojogun, meaning the house of Ojogun, to do your work. So what I'm really saying there is that it takes a continuous practice, or if you want to put it in a differently, it takes consistency to be able to refine our tools. Because when we were born, sometimes some people might have been born with the skills to tell story, but many of us are not. Even though story is actually inherent in us, is deeply rooted in all of us, not all of us know how to tell story. To tell a story is an art, because you need to know how to tell story. You need to know how to touch the heart of the people so that they can respond to you. That is why stand-up comedian, they practice several lines for a number of times so that it can land. Because if it cannot land, the people will not laugh. If people do not laugh, they're not going to pay. And if they don't pay, you are not in business. So storytelling is not just knowing how to put words there. It's about knowing how to arrange them. You know, you have a deck card there. Knowing how to know, this is what I'm going to say. After this one, I add it, then add it. Then at the end of the day, somebody look at the story and say, that is really captivating. It is practice. It is learning. It is years to be able to do that. to be able to do it the way you are doing it. So mastery really is important for us. But anyway, we will come back to this because we are not in haste. For today, this is what we are really going to take. This 4-part facet of storytelling for business. And we are coming back to talk more about it in different other episodes. But that is the last one I want to ask you, Athon. What would businesses take away from this 5-part, this 4 facet of storytelling? What is the message you want business to take away from it? This is the last question before we close today's conversation.
I think you already said it. Your summary that you just gave is the summary that I will give as well. Is that anything that we want to accomplish that's worth doing requires practice. And oftentimes, if you're running track, if you're making pottery, you don't just start and watch YouTube videos and hope that you'll throw a great pot on the potter's wheel. If you're really serious about being good at it, you're going to find somebody who's done it before you, because you can see the work that they've done and you go, oh my gosh, they make amazing pots. I've watched some YouTube videos, but I want to get better at this. I'm going to go to that master pot maker and sit with them and watch them on their potter's wheel. And after a while, they'll guide me in the process. Mastery requires that we have aspirational goals. We stretch goals. Things that we don't think we can do, we reach for. I'm not sure I'm a great storyteller, but I'm going to practice, and I'm going to find a guide, someone that I know that tells great stories, and I'm going to ask them to coach me. And I will practice stories with them and learn from them, and I'll gain mastery because of my commitment to that master and to the process. Mastery is something that we do deliberately, consistently. It takes commitment, and we know when we fully commit to something, then providence moves too. So commit to deliberate practice. Find a coach that can guide you. And whatever it is that you aspire to do, your commitment and the assistance of that coach, you'll accomplish great things. And then one day you'll be able to coach someone to do the same thing. Each one teach one is kind of the theme for that.
That is highly valuable in the African diaspora community, where we need a lot of knowledge to help an individual to move away from some of the trap that we have and able to shine. So that is a good advice. If you know something that is valuable, teach another person. We need to make sure that the knowledge is passed on in the community. It is our job to do this. And of course, like I said before, we're going to come back to this conversation. It is not just done one time. Actually, the intention that we have was to make it an audio live on Facebook. We're still trying to figure out how it will work, because I've never really been doing Facebook Live. I do LinkedIn Live. I do have 3 audio rooms on LinkedIn, but we're trying to do the same thing on Facebook, so that we can get this gospel out to more people, or how to use storytelling for their business. So by the time we're able to figure it out, we'll be doing it live. But for now, we are recording it, and it will be passed to you so that you can listen to it. But that is to tell you that we're not just doing this only one time. We have a series, a succession of it that is coming on the way, on how to use storytelling for your business. So like as you have heard our Athon says, it is important that you continue to practice. There is no way you can become an expert if you don't put in the time. It needs a lot of time if you need results. If you do it casually, you will get casual results. And You don't need casual result if you're in business. So that is why we're insisting that you do it well. And of course, if you need help, Aton is here. He's an expert in it. He knows what he's talking about. And I'm here too. So come around. Let's leverage the power of storytelling for what we are doing, particularly within the area of business. It's going to change the game for you. I believe this strongly. So come around. Take up the challenge of refining your skill of storytelling. But this is what you can do for us. If you find any value in this video, why don't make your comment? Let us know what you like about it. Or maybe you don't even like it. It's okay. Just share with us. We are willing to listen to you, even when you don't like it. Maybe I speak too much, or maybe Arthur, you didn't even get anything that he was saying. It's okay. We want to hear from. This is story. I said my own. You also say your own. What do you think about it?
Well, this is a perfect segue into story building. So collaborate with us to co-create a program that benefits all of us. Tell us what landed well with you and what you want more of. Tell us that was like just a missile over your head. Like, I don't know what that guy was talking about. We won't do more of that, but tell us what works, because you're the customer in this, right? And this is the story building process. What we're opening the door to you in the comments to say, that one thing that you went, I wish you had gone deeper. I wish you had told me more about that, because I think that's something that I could really use tomorrow. And this thing that we didn't talk about, if you talked about this would help me in this way, because you guys sound like you know stuff. So collaborate, and we will co-create a show that we'll enjoy producing, and we'll enjoy it because you'll get great value from it. Why? Because you told it that's the value that you want, and we will do our best to deliver. Story building, that's the business that we're in.
Perfectly said. You see, Apple have this 5% of storytelling, and the which is, I think that is the second one. The second one is what we evoked just now.
Yeah.
So be part of this game. Tell us what you want to learn more, and we will do it for you. All right. With that is where the conversation is going to end today. And of course, we are coming back again next time to bring in more value. We are going home to prepare more so that we can bring more value to you. Arthur, thank you so much, my brother. That's been a pleasure here. And of course, I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And back at you, brother. Absolutely. I enjoy these moments that we share together. I'm always learning something when we come together like this. So thank you for sharing so much.
Thank you so much for that. It's a pleasure here. All right. So yeah, that is the end of the recording today. But I think this was really interesting. I think, you know what? I'm still trying to find the way to make sure that it is we can do the live program on Facebook. This way people can participate. I believe people can participate. The live audience on Facebook, I don't really see it to be very active, but it's okay. We are going to continue to, or if not, then we can pass it on to you, to Facebook. Oh, sorry, to YouTube.
Yeah.
So I'm still looking for different ways to do it, but for now, we do the recording like this. Then when it's ready, I move it there. Then let's see. Let's begin to study the best way to do it live.
Yeah. I mean, I looked up, and I think we did 90 minutes. Did we go that long?
Yeah. We do stay a bit of time.
And so, I mean, and I realized somewhere in there that, there were segments that, so we've got a lot of shorts that we could pull out of this, as well as, so it was a good episode. And I really enjoyed the flow. I think we kind of got the feel of how to ping pong it back and forth too. And I think I enjoyed that part of it. It was good.
That's interesting.
It was very good. I had a good time talking about it, and I mean this in all sincerity. It brings me joy to really listen to you. You articulate. We share the same story DNA, but I like the way you communicate the value. It's special.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you. I appreciate your contribution. I appreciate what you have said. There is a lot to learn there. And I believe that our audience are going to be the better part of it, is that they have a lot to go home with. So let's get ready for next one. If you have maybe a 40 that you want us to talk about in the next lesson, or the next lesson. Anyway, very soon we should be preparing our course, of course.
Well, I think we have to figure out, I mean, why don't we both reflect on, you reflect on it, because I think about it all the time, and in this scenario, you're the customer. You tell me what you heard, and which one of the four that you believe that we can bring more out of. Is it the doing, the building?
All right.
I think if I had to pick one, it would be the telling, and it would be me interviewing you on the telling.
Because, all right.
You know,
I'm available here too. Whatever you want to ask me, just let me know. I will prepare. I'll get myself ready.
Yeah. I mean, because I can tell the story of telling, but you're more direct. You're more. I spend more time around the telling than I do in the telling, right? And that makes the collaboration maybe more meaningful, because it provides definition to the roles that we play. Yeah, Arthur wants to do the listening and building and doing, but Obahe is really serious and committed to the telling, if we want the telling part, right? And so I think we can draw more definition in our offers that way.
All right.
You know, I mean, and I think, and in that way, when I interview you on a show that I'm calling my show, right, then people will see, because I believe in storytelling, but I've not built the platform that you've built for storytelling. So people can want to listen and build with me, but when they want to tell it, I can point them to you, because I sincerely believe that the deliberate way that you built the infrastructure to deliver the telling of the stories that you share is modeled for every business owner to do the same thing.
Anything I can share with that, I really, my knowledge is for the community. That is how I see it. So if there is anything at all that can be useful in what I do, just let me know. I'm really anytime to say anything I know about it.
I think the thing that we should focus on with you is the storytelling and the marketing flywheel, because I admire the flywheel that you built, brother. I think it's really well put together, and it's well made.
All right.
And question, here's a question. Is your offer just helping people tell the story, or are you helping people market the stories they tell?
All right. Essentially, what we do is that, okay, we do have a couple of things, how our business model work is that we create content for businesses. This content can include article packages, can include video that we create for businesses, of course, using their story, in that we basically help them to tell their story. But sometimes telling their story will mean that this story needs to exist in formats, no? In format like, is it going to be a book? Is it going to be an article? Is it going to be a video?
Okay. So that's exactly that's what I was thinking that you were doing, but I didn't know that. I haven't looked at everything that you have, but I didn't see that, but I knew that was a capability that you could. Yeah. So that's,
we do have that. And of course, we do also have our course platform for those who want to learn about storytelling. So we prepare courses that are valuable for them to learn. So whether you want to learn storytelling, or you want to apply it or do the application in your business, we are in for both of them, because we are essentially a media company.
Yeah. I get it. That's nice, man. That's really nice. Are you doing business in Italy, in EU as well?
Well, this is a kind of, maybe let's say it's an international, but it's registered in Nigeria, the business, the company.
let's get some customers on different continents, brother.
Exactly.
You
But
know?
although the audience are mostly targeted towards the United States and and also Canada and UK, people that are of the English speaking world, who are interested in this in the use of story for their business. Is it's not really mostly in Nigeria, but even though the company is registered in Nigeria, okay, in Nigeria we speak English, but the audience is mostly in North America.
I think anytime you have, we share a talent, we share a talent for the interview and understanding people. I've done a little bit of the work that you do with helping people with their brand, and I keep thinking that I should do more of it. But that's another conversation. I know that there's opportunity for us to collaborate there. And my intent would be, when I'm interviewing you, that in the two-part interview is the start and story, and then how you use story to help businesses grow, right? The service you provide. And that's the I think there may be three, because the service you provide, it might be talking about the marketing flywheel that you, because you use content to get the flywheel to start to move, and that's when I can show you how to DIY. That's what
that would be very interesting. I'm willing to learn.
You could do the DIY. Say, look, I've done it. I can show you how to do it for yourself. Or you can hire me to do it for you. DIY or do it for you. But there's 3 episodes. I'm a master storyteller. But I'm more than that. That's the second one. I built the flywheel to help my stories go. And I can do that for you. I can show you, I have courses to show you how. Or you can just hire me to do it for you. So that's 3 or 4 episodes in there, brother.
That's interesting. Let's do this. We are ready for it.
Absolutely. I know. I look forward to it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, brother. So when the video is ready, of course, as usual, I will send you a link so you can see it. Okay.
Well, so are you recording and I'm recording too? Did you record it at OBS?
Yeah, I recorded it. Yeah.
I love how you work, brother. I've got the Zoom recording here. You've got the OBS recording there. So
yeah. No, yeah, because since it's here, it's a full HD recorded here, so it's perfectly fine.
See, that's why you make the big bucks. Listen, enjoy the rest of the weekend, brother.
You too.
I appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.